The dusty road outside the small town of Red Vale shimmered under the brutal noon sun. The sound of roaring engines shattered the quiet air as a group of rugged bikers thundered down the narrow stretch, their leather jackets glinting with patches of skulls and flames. A small figure stood in the middle of that road, barefoot, trembling, and holding something too heavy for her fragile hands. The bikers slowed, their engines growling to silence as the dust settled around her. She looked no older than 8, her pale blue dress torn, her hair tangled with dirt and tears streaking her cheeks. In her tiny hands was a revolver that looked far too big for her. Her voice broke through the still air, fragile yet defiant. "Who among you," she said, her lips trembling, "is my father? If you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because stories like this remind us that sometimes the most broken hearts carry the deepest truths." The bikers exchanged looks of disbelief, unsure if this was a joke, a setup, or a hallucination from the heat. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man named Wade Razor Tillman, slowly stepped forward, his leather boots crunching gravel. He raised his hands slightly, a silent gesture of caution. He had seen guns pointed at him before, by cops, enemies, even friends, but never by a child. The girl's eyes locked on him with something deeper than fear. It was a search, a desperate, aching search for something lost long ago. "Who told you that, kid?" Wade asked softly, trying not to startle her. She didn't answer. Her lips quivered as her small fingers tightened around the trigger. "My mother told me before she died." Her words sliced through the thick air. A few bikers shifted uneasily, muttering among themselves. Wade felt a strange coldness settle in his chest. He had lived his life outrunning ghosts, the kind that came with every burned bridge, every abandoned town, every woman he'd left behind. But the way this little girl's eyes glistened, green like the deep forest after rain, it stirred something buried. The girl's name was Mara Lee, and her journey to that lonely road had begun weeks earlier. She had lived in a small, rented shack on the edge of a trailer park with her mother, June, who had fallen sick and grown weaker each passing day. June had always carried a quiet sadness, one that turned heavier whenever she saw a motorcycle roar by in the distance. When the sickness became too much, Mara had begged her mother to hold on, to tell her something that could make it all better. With her last breaths, June had whispered, "You'll find him by the road he once ruled. His name is Wade Tillman. He rides with fire." After her mother's death, Mara had buried her under a willow tree and promised she would find the man her mother spoke of. She took the only thing June had left, an old revolver wrapped in a piece of cloth, and began walking toward the highway, asking strangers, gas station clerks, and truckers if they knew of Wade Tillman. Against all odds, one of them had told her about a biker group passing through Red Vale that matched his name. That's how a barefoot little girl, with nothing but grief and grit, ended up standing on a sunburned road with a gun aimed at the man who might be her father. Wade motioned for his men to back off and took another cautious step. "Kid, I don't know what you think you heard, but..." She cut him off, her voice breaking. "You left her. You left my mom when she needed you most. You rode away." Her words echoed through the desert air, each one like a stone thrown at his conscience. The men behind him grew quiet. They had all known Wade long enough to sense this was no random child. Something in his expression, that flicker of recognition, that sudden heaviness, told them the truth before he even admitted it. Wade dropped to one knee, his voice lower now, thick with something he hadn't felt in years. "What was her name?" he asked. Mara hesitated, still pointing the gun. "June," she said softly. "June Lee." Wade's eyes fell shut. He hadn't heard that name in 9 years, but it hit him like a punch to the chest. He had met June when he was still running from the law, young and full of fire. She had given him kindness when no one else would, a warm place to rest when the world felt cold. He had promised her he'd come back once he got clean, but he never did. Instead, he'd buried himself in the road and the roar of engines, pretending his past didn't exist. When he looked up again, tears burned the edges of his eyes. "Put it down, Mara," he said gently. "You don't need to carry that." But Mara shook her head, her small hands trembling harder. "You should have been there," she cried.
"She said you'd come back."
"Every night she said you would." Her voice cracked, and the weight of all her pain poured out like a flood. The gun slipped from her fingers and hit the ground with a dull thud. In the silence that followed, Mara's sobs were the only sound. Wade rose and took a slow step forward, unsure if he even deserved to hold her. Yet something inside him, something that still remembered what love felt like, made him reach out. She didn't resist. She collapsed into his arms, crying against the chest of a man she had hated moments ago. For the first time in years, Wade felt small. The hardened leader of the Steel Saints was suddenly just a man staring at the wreckage of his own choices. The rest of the crew stood in silence, the wind carrying away the dust of what they'd all just witnessed. Wade carried Mara to one of the bikes and wrapped his leather jacket around her shoulders. "You're coming with me," he said softly. "No more running." That day marked a strange beginning. Wade took Mara under his care, not as a project or a debt, but as a promise to the woman he once loved and failed. He tried to clean up. Fewer rides, no fights, no booze. He started taking her to the diner each morning, made her laugh for the first time in months, and even got her into a local school. The townspeople didn't trust him at first. An ex-con biker raising a little girl. But over time, they saw how he waited outside her school gates every day, how he brought her flowers on her birthdays, how he repaired bikes in the shed just to afford her books. But the past never stays buried for long. One afternoon, a rival gang came looking for Wade. Men he'd once wronged, men who didn't believe he'd changed. They caught him outside the diner and made their threats clear. "You think a kid makes you a saint?" Their leader sneered. "You owe blood, Wade." He didn't fight back. He only asked them one thing, to leave Mara out of it. They laughed and walked away, but Wade knew they'd return. That night, while Mara slept, Wade sat by the window, staring at the revolver she had once pointed at him. The same revolver that once symbolized blame now felt like a symbol of forgiveness. He knew he couldn't protect her forever if he stayed in that life, so he made a decision. The next morning he packed his things and left Mara a note. It read, "My little girl, I was a fool once. I lost your mother. I won't lose you. You deserve peace, school friends, not the noise I bring. I'm going to make things right so that someday I can come back without fear. Until then, know this, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. Love, Dad." When Mara woke up and found the note, she ran outside barefoot again, calling his name down the empty road. But this time the road didn't echo back. Months passed. Wade disappeared. The rival gang was later caught in a raid, their leader arrested. Rumors spread that Wade had helped the cops track them down from the inside. Some said he was dead. Others said he had vanished into the mountains. But Mara never stopped waiting. Years later, a small motorcycle shop opened on the outskirts of Redvale. Its sign read, "June's Road, Repairs and Restorations." The owner was a young woman with steady green eyes and grease-stained hands. On the counter sat an old photo of a smiling woman holding a baby, and beside it, a worn leather jacket with the name, Wade, stitched on the inside. Mara had grown into someone strong, resilient, and kind, everything her parents had once hoped for. One bright afternoon, while she was fixing a carburetor, she heard the familiar rumble of an engine outside. Her hands froze. The sound was old but distinct, the rhythm of a bike she thought she'd never hear again. She stepped outside, her heart pounding. A man with graying hair and tired eyes stood by the door. His face was older, marked by years of regret and wind, but the moment their eyes met, she knew. No words were spoken. He just removed his helmet, tears welling as he whispered, "You fixed your own road, kiddo." She ran to him, the years of longing breaking into a single, powerful embrace. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Because every act of redemption begins with one moment of courage and love. And before you go, tell us in the comments below, do you believe that people who've made mistakes can truly change if they're given a second chance?